The microphone let out a short screech before Everett Sinclair III spoke. $1 million to anyone in this room who dares to sit down and play against me. No one stood up, except for one person. The teenager stepped out from behind the row of cars parked in the courtyard, his hands still covered in engine oil, still wearing his father's jacket left on the driver's seat. Marcus Ellison, hiding behind the lamppost, dropped the glass cleaning cloth he was holding. "What are you doing, Deshawn?" Deshawn did not turn around. "I accept that challenge, Mr. Sinclair." Laughter erupted among the suited guests. Sinclair raised an eyebrow, looked down at his dusty shoes, then looked over at Marcus. "My driver's son." He chuckled softly, turning to the microphone. "All right, sit down, kid." Deshawn pulled up the chair, placing his hand on the first pawn. No one in that mansion's courtyard knew he had not lost a ranked chess game in 4 years. This story did not begin in the courtyard of the Grosse Pointe Mansion that night, but began 15 years ago, in the driver's cabin of a shiny black car that had never belonged to the Ellison family. Before continuing, let me know where you are watching this video from. Type the name of your city, the name of your country, down in the comments. I am truly curious how many places in the world we are present at right now. And please subscribe to the channel to not miss new stories every evening. 5:10 a.m. The 2-bedroom apartment on Conant Street. 3rd floor, no elevator. The old alarm clock clicked before the bell had time to ring. Deshawn Ellison was already awake. He did not need the bell. His body automatically woke up exactly at this time every day for the past 4 years. The room was small, clean, the yellow streetlight shining through the thin curtain. On the study desk, placed against the wall, a plastic magnetic chessboard, missing a queen, lay next to the frayed paperback book by Jose Raul Capablanca. Deshawn sat down, did not turn on the desk lamp, only used the light from the hallway. He set up the chess position from the night before, where he left off. Move 34, knight to f5. He looked at the chess position for a long time, not touching any piece, just looking. On Deshawn's wrist, a small steel pawn, heavy, polished smooth over the years, dangled on the faded leather cord. He had never taken it off since the day he received it. On the other side of the thin wall, the door lock clicked. Angela Ellison stepped in, still wearing the crumpled nurse uniform, the hospital disinfectant smell still lingering on her sleeves. The night shift at the Sinai Grace emergency room ended at 4:45. She drove across half the city to get back in time before Deshawn went to school. "You are up so early?" she asked, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. "I always wake up at this time, Mom." Angela took off her shoes, placed the handbag on the chair, looked at her son for a while. She did not understand all the chess moves on the board, but she understood that look. That look of concentration to the point of forgetting the whole world around. "Is your dad awake yet?" "Yes, he is awake, ironing his shirt." The small living room had an old ironing board placed next to the window. Marcus Ellison stood there, holding the white shirt in his hand, carefully ironing every crease of the collar as if preparing for a grand ceremony and not a normal day of driving. His driver's uniform hung neatly on the hanger, pitch black, without a single wrinkle. For 15 years now, Marcus drove the black sedan for the Sinclair family. He knew by heart every shortcut in Grosse Pointe, knew by heart the type of coffee Mr. Everett Sinclair drank in the morning, knew by heart even how to fold the blanket in the trunk so that it would not wrinkle. But he had never been invited inside the house, even when it poured rain and he had to stand waiting outside the garage for hours on end. "Is there anything special today, Dad?" Deshawn asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Mr. Sinclair has a party this weekend." "Charity gala." Marcus did not look up, his hand still pressing the collar flat. "I need an extra person to help park the guests' cars. Are you free?" "I am free." Marcus nodded, said nothing more. That was how the father and son talked, brief, without superfluous words, but enough to understand each other. Deshawn ate his breakfast standing, a slice of peanut butter sandwich, his eyes still glued to the book opened ready on the kitchen counter. He did not watch television in the morning like classmates, did not scroll through his phone. Only the chessboard, the book, and the clinking sound of pots and pans of his mother preparing the packed lunches for the whole family. 7:20. Deshaun carried his backpack out the door, walked 8 blocks to Cody High School. The school gate had a metal detector. The hallway had peeling paint in patches. The lockers, for the most part, could not be locked because the locks had broken long ago. He walked through the hallway like a shadow. Not bullied, simply no one noticed him. The type of student whose name the teachers forgot to call during roll call. Lunchtime. Deshaun sat alone in the far corner of the cafeteria, setting up a chess puzzle extracted from an old magazine borrowed at the public library. While at the next table, a few classmates were arguing loudly about last night's basketball game. The math teacher, Mrs. Whitaker, walked past, stopped behind his back. "That is the French defense chess position," she said, her voice surprised. Deshaun looked up. "Do you know how to play chess?" "Know a little bit. Have you played for long?" "Yes, for a long time, too. Our school does not have a chess team." Mrs. Whitaker looked at him for a while, as if considering something, then stopped. "You should try finding a club somewhere." Deshaun only smiled, did not answer, bent down to the puzzle to continue calculating. Mrs. Whitaker stood for a few more seconds, then walked away, not knowing that this quiet student already had a club, only that no one in this school had ever known about it. Afternoon after school, Deshaun did not go straight home. He stopped by the Plibe Library on McNichols Street, where there was an old wooden desk corner always reserved for him every Tuesday and Thursday. He took out from his backpack a photocopied papers full of dense handwriting. The chess puzzles he copied himself from interlibrary loan books. He sat down, opened the stack of papers, and began calculating, completely forgetting the time, forgetting even the phone vibrating in his pocket, signaling a message from his mother, asking what time he would be home for dinner. At the same time, more than 20 kilometers away from the Conant Gardens area, on the 31st floor of an office building overlooking the Detroit River, Everett Sinclair III was standing in front of the large glass pane, the phone wedged between his shoulder and ear. "Saturday night will be the grandest ever," he said to the person on the other end of the line, his voice full of complacency. "I managed to invite a Grand Master to come commentate. The local television channel is also sending people to film." He hung up, opened his phone, tried playing a blitz chess game with the application on the device, winning after only 11 moves. He smiled to himself, tapping his hand on the mahogany table surface. On the office wall, the picture frames were arranged in neat rows. Everett Sinclair shaking hands with the World Grandmaster at a charity tournament last year. Everett Sinclair holding a trophy at a business event. He even had a collection of rare chessboards, a set made from hand-polished ivory, worth $200,000, a set carved from solid walnut wood from the Civil War era. He did not play well. His club rating level was only about 1,400, a number that any serious teenager could beat easily. But he did not know that, because no one had ever dared to beat him without intentionally letting him win. "Chess is the ultimate proof of intellect," he said to the assistant standing next to him, his voice as if lecturing. "It cannot be faked. Remember that sentence." In the afternoon, at the Grosse Pointe Mansion garage, Marcus Ellison received the task list for the gala night from the butler. 60 guests confirmed to attend, needing 2 more people to help park cars, reinforce security at the main gate. "Can you have your kid come over to help?" the butler asked, his eyes not leaving the paper in his hand. "Paid by the hour like the other kids." "Yes, sir," Marcus replied, his voice even. The butler nodded, did not look up at him, then added, almost blurting out, "Tell him to just stand in the parking area. Not allowed to enter the main party area. Mr. Sinclair does not like strangers hovering near the guests." Not a stranger, the son of the person who had driven for this family for 15 years. But Marcus said nothing. He only nodded, folded the paper, stuffed it into his breast pocket. That evening, during dinner, Marcus retold this story for Angela to hear, his voice gentle as if talking about the weather. Angela put down her chopsticks, looking at her husband. 15 years already, Marcus. I know. They still cannot even remember our child's name." Marcus did not answer. He looked over at Deshaun, who was sitting eating quietly at the head of the table, his eyes still glancing towards the chess book, placed next to his rice plate. "I am fine, Mom," Deshaun said. not looking up. I am just parking cars anyway. After dinner, Deshaun returned to his room, sat down at the familiar chessboard. He set up the unfinished chess position again, but this time could not concentrate. His gaze kept gliding over the steel pawn on his wrist. The phone vibrated. A message from Miles Sinclair, the son of Everett, the only person in the family who had ever spoken nicely to Deshaun. Back when the two were in the same summer class, 2 years ago at the community center, before Miles transferred to a private school. Are you coming to help with the gala this weekend? Heard my dad is offering a $1 million prize for anyone who can beat him in chess. Just showing off like that, probably no one dares to accept it anyway. Deshaun looked at the message for a long time, his finger hovering over the screen. He put the phone down, looked over at the chessboard, then looked at the steel pawn on his wrist, fingers gently spinning it on the leather cord, without even knowing he was doing so. Saturday arrived faster than Deshaun thought. The Grosse Pointe mansion courtyard shone brightly under rows of hanging lights. Vehicles lined up entering the white gravel driveway. Deshaun stood in the parking area, holding the number board in his hand, opening the door of every shiny sedan, bowing to greet every guest who did not bother to look back at him. Miles found him at nearly 9 o'clock, pulling his sleeve near the porch. Go inside. My dad just opened the exhibition match with Uncle Whitfield. You have to see this. Deshaun hesitated, but then followed. From the glass door frame, he saw the ivory chessboard placed in the middle of the hall, the spotlight shining straight down, and Everett Sinclair standing up amidst the applause, both hands raised high as if he had just become the world champion. Ladies and gentlemen, Sinclair held the microphone, his voice echoing across the hall. I would like to open a challenge. $1 million for anyone in this room who dares to sit down and defeat me tonight. Laughter erupted. No one stepped forward. Go on. Miles lightly pushed Deshaun's shoulder, his voice half joking, half serious. You play chess well, I know that. Deshaun looked through the crowd, looking for his father. Marcus stood in the far corner, near the kitchen door, his hand still holding the walkie-talkie, his vigilant eyes sweeping across the courtyard like any other working night. He did not see his son standing in the main hall. Deshaun stepped out. The whole room softly paused for a beat. Then the whispers spread faster than fire. Who is that? The parking guy's kid? God, this is interesting. Sinclair looked at him from head to toe, his eyes stopping at the rubber gloves, still stuck on Deshaun's belt, the thing he used to wipe car windows. He burst out laughing, the laughter echoing across the hall. My driver's son wants to try his luck? I want to accept your challenge, Deshaun said, his voice not trembling. Sinclair raised an eyebrow, turned to the crowd, raising both hands as if performing a comedy act. All right, but to be fair, we should also bet a little something extra from your side. You do not have $1 million, right? That is correct. Then how about this? Sinclair stepped closer to the chessboard, his voice lowered but still enough for the whole room to hear clearly. If you lose, your father will stand right in the middle of this hall, in front of all the guests, and shine the shoes with his own hands for every person present tonight, including me. Laughter erupted again. In the corner of the room, Deshaun saw his father stepping closer, Marcus's face going pale, his mouth moving to wordlessly call his son's name. Deshaun did not turn back to look at his father. He pulled the chair, sat down opposite Sinclair, placing his hand on the edge of the freezing cold ivory chessboard. I agree. Renata Cole, the Grandmaster sitting at the commentary table in the back, slightly tilted her head, her gaze stopping longer than usual on Deshaun's hands resting on the chessboard, then gliding down to the leather cord worn on his wrist, where a small steel pawn dangled, polished smooth by hand. She pulled her phone out of her pocket, quickly typing a few words, her eyes not leaving the chessboard. Sinclair picked up the white pawn, spinning it lightly between his two fingers, not rushing to put it down yet, enjoying the gaze of the whole room focusing towards him. In the moment, Sinclair was still spinning the white pawn between his two fingers. Renata Cole had managed to recognize the thing hanging on his opponent's wrist. But to understand the thing she had just recognized, it is necessary to go back 8 years ago to a Tuesday afternoon at the Conant Gardens Community Center. Deshaun turned 10 years old. His mother got off work late as usual. and the community center was the only place still open near home. He walked in, saw an old man sitting alone in the corner of the room. In front of him was an old wooden chessboard, missing a rook, replaced by a squashed Coca bottle cap. That old man was Theodore Vance, the person who every kid in the neighborhood simply called Uncle Ted. 74 years old, a veteran, who had won the military chess championship 2 consecutive times back when he was stationed in Germany. He returned to Detroit in 1979, worked in a factory for 20 years straight. Then, upon retiring, he opened a free chess teaching class. No signs, no sponsorship, just a folding table and 6 plastic chairs. "Do you want to sit?" Ted asked, not looking up. Deshawn sat down, saying nothing. "You know the rules of the game, right?" He shook his head. Ted placed a pawn in the middle of the chessboard, spinning it gently between his 2 fingers. "This is the smallest piece on the board. Everyone looks down on it. But if it has enough courage to keep moving forward, it will become the strongest piece." He looked at Deshawn, his eyes gentle. "You remind me of this pawn." That afternoon, Ted taught Deshawn the basics moves. Pawns only move straight. Knights move in an L shape. Bishops move diagonally. Deshawn did not speak much, but his eyes did not leave the chessboard, even for a single second. He returned the next day, then the day after that, then every day for 8 years straight. At 8 years old, Deshawn had beaten every kid in the class. At 10 years old, he started beating even the adults. At 12 years old, Ted registered him to participate in his first rated tournament, the Michigan Scholastic Championship. Deshawn won all 5 games, not drawing a single game. That night, Ted took out from his shirt pocket a steel pawn, manually filed from an old bolt he asked for at the car repair shop near his home. He placed it into the palm of Deshawn's hand. "I made this back when you were only 10 years old. I waited for the exact day you deserved to receive it." Ted squeezed his hand gently. "Do not let anyone look down on you, Deshawn. You are the pawn moving forward." Deshawn threaded it onto the leather cord, wore it on his wrist, and had never taken it off since that day. Ted's health began to decline from the year Deshawn was 14. Diabetes took his legs first, then gradually took the flexibility in his hands. He had to sit in a wheelchair, using a small wooden stick to point at the chess squares, because his hands shook too much to hold the chess pieces anymore. He had never complained. He only said, "My hands have retired, but my head has not." Parallel to Ted, there was also another person who taught Deshawn the things the chessboard could not teach. Walter Ellison, his grandfather, worked as an assembly worker at the Ford factory in Dearborn for 30 years straight. He did not read chess books, but he read philosophy during his lunch breaks, sitting on the parts crate, gnawing on a sandwich, while flipping every page of books by Frederick Douglass, by Booker T. Washington. Walter did not understand chess tactics, but he understood his grandson's eyes whenever he sat in front of the chessboard, the absolute focused look, as if the entire outside world no longer existed. Walter fell ill when Deshawn turned 9. Lung cancer. The diagnosis came in March, and by October he had passed away. The last time Deshawn saw him, in the hospital room, with the steady sound of the heart rate monitor, Walter tightly held his grandson's hand, his voice weak but clear. "Do not let anyone make you feel small, Deshawn. You are not small at all." 2 weeks after the funeral, Deshawn participated in his first open tournament and won. He wrote on the back of the match score sheet, "For Grandpa." That year, he was 10 years old. Now, the numbers no one in the Grosse Pointe Mansion Hall knew about. 152 consecutive rated wins. 3-time Michigan Scholastic Champion. United States Chess Federation rating, 2,260 points, national master level. Deshawn had never bragged about that, not out of modesty. He hid it because it was a matter of survival. He registered to compete under the initials DE. If someone at the Sinclair house found out his father let his son go compete in weekend chess tournaments instead of working extra hours to help, Marcus could lose his job. And losing the job meant losing the apartment on Conant Street. Renata Cole finished looking at the search results on her phone, then looked up at Deshawn, her gaze stopping at the steel pawn on his wrist. She had not said anything, but she already knew. At the chessboard, Sinclair was still spinning the white pawn between his 2 fingers, not yet putting it down. Sinclair placed the white pawn down on square e4. The first move, knight out to f3, bishop pointing to c4. Classic, safe, the thing taught in the first month of learning chess anywhere. Deschamps replied immediately, without hesitation. Knight up to f6, two knights fence. If Sinclair's opening move was a polite handshake, then Deschamps' answer was a straight push to the chest. Sinclair did not realize the difference. He continued to deploy according to the familiar script, pushing pawns, developing bishops, castling. The exact script of the exhibition match he just won against Louis Whitfield half an hour ago. The sixth move, Deschamps pushed a pawn into the center and then left it empty, no piece protecting it. A free piece. Sinclair looked at it for a few seconds, then captured it. He looked up at the crowd, smiling complacently. But he did not see what was happening behind that chess move. While he bent down to pick up a coin on the ground, Deschamps had led his pieces up to occupy all the high hills. Two knights coordinating, a bishop cutting diagonally across the entire chessboard like a sniper, rooks ready to connect. Every single one of his pieces had a mission. On Sinclair's side, the chess pieces were scattered everywhere. A knight standing at the edge of the board doing nothing. A bishop blocked by its own pawn. Two rooks still lying exactly at the starting squares, not yet able to connect with each other. By move 10, the smile on Sinclair's lips had disappeared. He loosened his tie a little bit, trying to act like no one noticed. Renata Cole leaned towards the microphone, her voice calm but firm. Ladies and gentlemen, what we just witnessed is not the move of a beginner learning to play. This young man just executed a strategic pawn sacrifice, intentionally giving up a piece to take control of the center of the chessboard. This is a concept usually only seen at the grandmaster level. The whole hall went silent for a beat. Champagne glasses were lowered. A few conversations stopped midway. Move 14. Sinclair tried to simplify the position by trading pieces, knight for knight, bishop for bishop. Deschamps refused all piece trade offers. Every time Sinclair offered an exchange, he retreated, placed the piece on a better square, opening up a new threat without needing to attack immediately. In the corner of the hall, near the serving kitchen door, Marcus Ellison stood silently, both hands clenched tightly together. He did not understand all the chess moves on the board, but he understood the eyes of the crowd around him were gradually changing. Move 18. Deschamps brought a knight into square d5, right in the middle of the opponent's territory. From that position, the knight controlled 8 different chess squares, at the same time protected securely by the pawns to the point that none of Sinclair's pieces could touch it. It just stood there, like an impenetrable fortress. Sinclair looked at it for nearly a minute, his hand hovering over several different chess pieces, then pulling back. He found a plan, or so he thought. His finger touched the bishop, preparing to push it, charging straight into Deschamps' pawn line to open an attack path to the opponent's king. A reckless sacrifice move, the type of move of a person no longer playing to win, but playing to survive. The crowd leaned forward. Sinclair put the bishop down, the chess piece hitting the ivory table surface, letting out a dry clack. "Check," he said, his voice somewhat forced, trying to keep a confident look. The whole hall held its breath. Deschamps was not in a hurry. He looked at Sinclair's check move, not as a threat, but as a question needing to be answered neatly. His hand lifted the remaining bishop, moving it a single diagonal square, blocking the check path. One move, but it solved two things at the same time. It completely blocked Sinclair's attack, and it opened up a new diagonal line, aiming straight at the opponent's king from the other side of the chessboard. Sinclair sat motionless, his eyes gliding over the chess position again. Then again, he found no way out. "Permission to take a 5-minute break," he said, his voice stiff, standing up before anyone had time to object. Deschamps stood up, walking towards the serving kitchen door, where his father was standing. But before he could get there, a man wearing a gray suit, Sinclair's personal assistant, blocked Marcus right at the hallway corner. "Mr. Ellison," the assistant said, his voice small but sharp. "Mr. Sinclair wants me to talk to you for a bit." "What is it?" "Mr. Sinclair highly appreciates your 15 years working here." The assistant lowered his voice even further. "He is willing to double your salary, Sign a lifetime contract, full medical insurance for the whole family. Just needs your son to say a few words to the referee. Hand pain, dizziness, any reason. Then ask to stop the match. Marcus stood still, 15 years of bowing and greeting without anyone ever asking what his wife and child's names were. Now, people were offering to trade all of those things. Trade his family's entire future for a lie from his son's mouth. "You are suggesting my son pretend to lose," Marcus said. His voice not loud, but firm. "I am suggesting a better life for your family," the assistant corrected. "Mr. Sinclair does not like losing, Mr. Ellison. You should think carefully. Think about what you could lose if your son keeps continuing to sit at that table. Let me talk to the boy," Marcus said, his voice going hoarse. He stepped over to Deshawn, the assistant staying behind, folding his arms, waiting for the result. "What is the matter, Dad?" Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. "They offered me a lifetime contract, double salary, insurance for our whole family. In exchange, you have to pretend your hand hurts, ask to stop the match." Deshawn said nothing for a few seconds. He looked at his father, then looked over his shoulder towards the ivory chessboard still waiting under the spotlight. "Do you want me to do that?" Marcus was silent for a really long time. "I want you to do the right thing," he said finally, his voice shaking slightly. "But I'll not blame you no matter what you choose." Deshawn nodded, turned around, walked straight towards the chessboard, not looking back at the assistant who was standing waiting for an answer. Renata Cole observed him, sitting down, his face not showing a bit of emotion. She leaned towards the microphone once again. While waiting for the match to continue, "I want to share one thing," she said. According to the United States Chess Federation statistics, less than 2% of chess players with a rating over 2,000 points ever learn chess at free community centers. The majority of true talents in this sport have never been seen simply because they cannot afford the expensive training courses. The match continued. Move 19, 2021. Sinclair tried to trade pieces time and time again. Every time. Deshawn refused, retreated, placed the piece in a better position. Meanwhile, a small pawn, the weakest piece on the chessboard, was silently advancing step by step along the edge. Move 22. It had gone half the distance to the opponent's side. Move 25. In a fit of desperation, Sinclair pushed his queen charging straight into the middle of the position, ignoring safety, just to create an immediate threat, hoping the 18-year-old opponent would panic and miscalculate a move. The crowd leaned forward. Someone at the banquet table dropped a glass, the shattering sound echoing amidst the silence. Deshawn looked at the new chess position, not in a hurry, both hands still resting quietly on his thighs, his eyes sweeping across the chessboard one last time, before his hand slowly reached out, touching the rook. Deshawn lifted the rook at a nixel square to Sinclair's back rank, directly threatening the queen that had just charged up. A move looking so simple that a few people in the crowd had not even had time to understand what had just happened. But that move forced Sinclair to withdraw his queen, and during the retreat, he left the entire queen's side wide open. One move, two problems were solved. A new problem appeared for Sinclair. He sat in silently, his hand trembling slightly on the edge of the table. Renata Cole leaned towards the microphone, her voice this time no longer keeping its professional neutrality. "Ladies and gentlemen, I think it is time to share what I know." The whole hall turned towards her. The young man sitting opposite Mr. Sinclair is Deshawn Ellison. He currently has a rating of 2,260 points according to the United States Chess Federation, equivalent to the national master level. He has not lost a rated match in the past 4 years. 152 consecutive victories. 3-time Michigan Scholastics champion. She stopped, letting the numbers soak into the air. He is 18 years old, and he is the son of the man who has driven for the Sinclair family for the past 15 years. Silence, not the polite type of silence, the type of silence that punches straight into the listener's chest. Then the whispers began to rise, slowly like a wave from afar, advancing to the shore. A man near the bar put down his wineglass, blurted out, "Wait, what?" A woman pulled out her phone, started recording a video, then another person, then 3 more people. Sinclair heard every word clearly. His jaw clenched tight. He was not just losing a chess game. He was losing the story he still told about himself. Miles Sinclair stood leaning against the wall in the back, both hands folded in front of his chest. Observing his father, he was not surprised at all. Marcus stood at the kitchen door, both hands clenched tightly together until pale white. Move 28, 29. Sinclair only had 7 pieces left on the board. Deshawn had 9 left, but the numbers did not tell the whole story. Position was what decided everything. Sinclair's king was cornered, completely surrounded by his own pawn line like a cage he built himself to defend, now becoming the place imprisoning himself. His only remaining knight stood dead at the edge of the chessboard, unable to do anything. And the tiny pawn, the weakest piece on the chessboard, now had advanced to the 6th rank, only 2 squares left to reach the destination. Deshawn captured Sinclair's remaining rook, then pushed the pawn to advance 1 more square, the 7th rank. Only 1 square left. Sinclair poured everything left into a final effort, brought the queen over, checked the king, trying to create a chaotic situation. Deshawn blocked the check move with his bishop, calm, without a bit of hesitation. Then he pushed the pawn to step the final squares. It touched the last rank of the chessboard. Promotion. A new queen appeared on the board, and it appeared with a check move, cutting off all escape routes of Sinclair's king at the same time. Deshawn had practiced for many years straight, with the chess set at home missing the queen, learning how to play without the strongest piece on the board. So when the moment to create a queen out of nowhere came, he did not hesitate at all. He did not stand up, did not raise his voice, only looked at the chessboard, then looked at Sinclair, speaking in an even voice. Checkmate in 3 moves. Sinclair did not budge. His hand hovered over a chess piece, then pulled back. He calculated in his head 1, 2, 3. All variations led to the same outcome. He had lost. The whole room held its breath. Then a clapping sound rang out slowly, decisively, from Renata Cole herself, who was standing up from her chair. The applause spread quickly across the hall, no longer the polite type of applause meant for an entertainment performance. That was real applause, rapid, of the people who had just witnessed the thing they would still retell many years later. Sinclair did not stand up to shake hands with his opponent. He sat still for a while, then pushed the chair back, the sound of the chair legs scratching on the marble floor sounding ear-piercing amidst the rising noise. "You arranged this," Sinclair said, his voice gradually growing louder, his finger pointing straight towards Marcus, who was standing at the kitchen door. "You knew beforehand your son played chess this well. You intentionally hid it from me for 15 years now." Marcus did not reply. 30 years of bowing and greeting, without being allowed to look straight into anyone's eyes, had taught him how to swallow the words that did not need to be spoken out. "Mr. Sinclair." Renata Cole held the microphone, her voice not loud, but every word was clear. "No one arranged anything at all. You publicly issued a challenge in front of 60 guests. A young man in this room accepted. The match took place on your own chessboard, exactly according to the rules you set, right in your house." She stopped, letting the sentence soak into the air. "The only thing making you surprised is that you had assumed that the smartest person in this room could not be the person you had never even bothered to look at." A few sparse clapping sounds rang out. A man standing near the bar nodded, speaking loud enough for the people around to hear. "She is right." Sinclair opened his mouth, then closed it. All the weapons he ever had, reputation, money, the very ivory chessboard, he proudly showed off across the pictures on the office wall, now turned backwards against himself. Deshawn stood up from the chair, not looking at Sinclair, nor looking at the crowd surrounding. He walked across the hall to the place his father was standing. Marcus hugged his son, squeezing tightly. The following night, the video already had more than 3 million views. By the weekend, the number surpassed 8 million. The hashtag bearing Deshawn's name appeared across all social media platforms. Miles Sinclair posted a short video from the university dorm. No script, only a 20-year-old student sitting in front of the phone camera, his eyes still red. "What my dad did last night was wrong," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "Deshawn deserves to be treated better. His father as well." I have known about this for a long time, and I apologize for being silent for too long. That video reached nearly 4 million views after only 2 days. Sinclair's lawyers reacted quickly, issuing a statement calling the challenge merely an entertainment gesture, legally non-binding. But 8 million people had watched the video of him placing the check down on the table. Sinclair withdrew from 2 charity boards in the following month. His annual gala event was no longer organized again. For Deshawn, the $1 million amount was not the first thing he thought of when sitting back with his parents in the small kitchen on Conant Street. "I want to name it after Grandpa," Deshawn said, his voice firm, his eyes looking straight at his mother. "Not for our family. For the other kids." Angela placed her hand on her husband's shoulder, her mouth just slightly opening to say something when Deshawn already stood up, pulled the chair. It's advanced towards the table where the fund registration paper was waiting for a team signature. The Walter Ellison Chess Initiative Fund launched 6 weeks after the gala night, with the exact $1 million sponsorship, not missing a single penny. Deshawn did not keep any penny for himself. He sat with the fund's lawyer, signed every page of paper, explained the goal: free chess for children in underfunded public schools across Detroit, free equipment, free training, free tournament fees. According to the report of the Michigan Education Research Center, less than 12% of public schools in low-income areas in Detroit have extracurricular chess programs. The first year, the fund operated at 9 schools in the East Detroit area. 74 students enrolled in just the first month. By the end of the year, 3 children among them participated for the first time in a rated tournament. An 8-year-old little girl named Jasmine, after the Thursday class, ran to the place. Deshawn was packing up the chessboard, asked, "Are you always this good?" Deshawn burst out laughing, a real comfortable laugh. "No, I am just stubborn." Ted still lived in the small apartment near the community center, his hands now trembling to the point of not being able to hold a chess piece. But his mind was still as sharp as the days he still taught Deshawn beside that folding table years ago. Every Saturday, Deshawn stopped by, opened the tablet, let him watch his most recent matches again. "Move 23, Ted said, his trembling finger tapping on the screen. "You were too hasty. I already taught you." 1 year after the gala night, Deshawn, 19 years old, participated in the National Youth Championship. He did not win the championship. He finished 3rd, losing 2 matches. After the losing match in the penultimate round, Deshawn sat alone in the hallway, both hands holding his head. Angela came to sit next to him, said nothing, only placed her hand on her son's back. The next morning, Deshawn returned to the competition room, won the final match in only 28 moves. Marcus no longer drove for the Sinclair family. 3 months after the gala night, he accepted a fleet manager position for a medical transport company, fixed hours. Angela also switched to working day shifts at the hospital. The magnetic chessboard missing the queen, the one that had followed Deshawn throughout the training years, now still lay intact on the old study desk in the family's new, wider apartment. There are things that do not need to be fixed. There are things that should be kept intact to remind oneself where one came from. As for Everett Sinclair, he did not completely collapse. He still kept the company, still had the mansion in Grosse Pointe, but the thing he lost could not be measured by money. His $200,000 ivory chess set now lay in the storage, covered with a cloth, no longer brought out for display. The following autumn, Deshawn stood in front of a new class at the elementary school, where the fund bearing his grandfather's name had just expanded the program. He placed a pawn in the middle of the chessboard, spun it gently between his 2 fingers, exactly the way Ted used to do 8 years ago, and began, "This is the smallest piece on the board. Deshawn Ellison is not real, but the student sitting in some classroom right now, the person possessing a talent no one has ever seen, the father silently doing the job no one thanks him for to nurture his child's dream. They are real. They are out there right now." According to the United States Chess Federation, less than 5% of the chess players participating in the National Youth Championship each year come from families with below-average incomes. Not because the children there lack talent, only because no one is patient enough to stop and see them. They do not need anyone to rescue them. They only need one person to stop and look straight into their eyes exactly once. I keep thinking forever about Everett Sinclair. His whole life he was told that he is smart, collecting expensive chessboards as a proof of that. Whereas Deshawn spent 12 years beside a chessboard, missing a queen, in a small kitchen, no one clapping. When the two people finally faced each other, the truth did not need anyone to introduce it. It spoke for itself. So I want to ask you this. In your life, who is the first person to see something in you that no one else ever realized? It could be a teacher, a grandfather or grandmother, a neighbor saying exactly one sentence at the exact time you needed to hear it the most. Please leave that person's name in the comment section so that they and those who are reading know that the thing they did for you that day has never been forgotten. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story with us today. See you again in the next story.